Rome shimmered under a veil of gold and decay, its cobblestone streets thick with the scent of incense and whispered treachery. In the heart of the Vatican, Cardinal Matteo Valeri, now Pope Innocentius IX, surveyed his domain with the cold precision of a hawk. The papal tiara rested heavy on his brow, a crown he had wrested through years of cunning, Spanish gold, and broken promises. The valorous were not noble by birth, but their ambition burned brighter than any lineage. Matteo's rise had been paved with bribes to wavering cardinals and quiet threats to those who resisted. The papal court, once a beacon of divine virtue, had become a labyrinth of vice, where fortunes shifted over dice and the fleeting smiles of courtesans. At the center stood Isabella, Matteo's daughter, a vision of raven hair and porcelain grace. At 16, her beauty was a weapon wielded by her father's hand. Her betrothals bartered for alliances that stretched from Milan to Naples. Her laughter rang through the Vatican's gilded halls, but her eyes held the sharp glint of one who understood her role in a game she had not chosen. Beside her loomed Lorenzo, her brother, a young cardinal whose lean frame and wolfish gaze belied ambitions that dwarfed even his father's. The whispers began early. Slithering through Rome's taverns and piazzas, the valorous were too close, too brazen, their sins too bold for a city that thrived on scandal. The court was a stage, and every player knew their lines, but the script was written in shadows. Matteo's mistresses moved openly, their jewels glinting in candlelight, their children raised within the Vatican's walls. Lorenzo's reputation grew with each rival who vanished into the Tiberi's murky depths. Isabella, radiant and enigmatic, was caught in the crossfire of rumor, her every glance dissected, her every smile fuel for slander. Beyond the Vatican's frescoed walls, Rome seethed. The people spoke of poison in goblets, of daggers in the dark. The valorous enemies, the Montefiores, the Savellas, circled like vultures, their pamphlets venomous with accusations. Rome had seen corruption before, but never so unapologetic. Beneath the apostolic palace's soaring ceilings, a darker legend took root. What manner of family was this? What sins festered behind their golden facade? The stage was set, and the name Valeri would burn eternal in Rome's memory. The whispers were like embers, faint at first but quick to ignite. They curled through the city's underbelly, from wine-soaked taverns to the Vatican's marble antechambers, carried by courtiers and scrawled in anonymous broadsheets left in the dawn's light. The daughter warms the father's bed, the brother's gaze lingers too long. No one could pinpoint the first tongue to speak it, but the accusation of incest spread like wildfire. The valorous enemies needed no proof. Scandal was weapon enough. Pamphlets appeared, their crude woodcuts depicting twisted embraces, figures just vague enough to skirt outright libel, but unmistakable in intent. Matteo's heavy jowls, Isabella's flowing hair, Lorenzo's sharp profile, all rendered in grotesque caricature. The verses were worse, prayers warped into obscenity. O Holy Father, who art in sin, unhallowed be thy name. Isabella, strolling through the Vatican gardens with her ladies, felt their chatter falter as she approached, their eyes darting to the rose-strewn path. Even the servants whispered behind calloused hands. She was no fool. She knew the rumors' weight, but refused to grant them power by acknowledgement. Lorenzo, ever the predator, reacted with steel. In a rain-slicked alley, he cornered a trembling printer, his dagger's edge grazing the man's throat until he named his patron a Montefiore lackey paid to sow filth. By dawn, the printer's body bobbed in the Tiber, his lips sewn shut. The message was clear, but the whispers only grew louder. Scandal, once loosed, could not be so easily silenced. Matteo, reclining in his velvet-draped chambers, dismissed it all with a wave of his ringed hand. Let the dogs bark, he told Isabella, his voice thick with wine. They envy what they cannot touch. But his nonchalance stoked the flames. Why would a pope, God's anointed, shrug off such slander unless it held a kernel of truth? At a banquet hosted by Cardinal Savelli, a rival, a poet recited verses heavy with innuendo, his eyes flickering toward Isabella as he spoke of roses plucked too soon. The room stifled laughter. Isabella's cheeks burned, but she held her chin high. Later, in her chambers, she hurled a crystal goblet against the wall, its shards glittering like tears in the moonlight. Lorenzo found her there, kneeling among the fragments. They will pay, he vowed, his voice a blade unsheathed. But payment could not undo the myth taking root in Rome, where truth and lies were traded like coin. The most dangerous tales were those the heart wanted to believe. Incest was the unforgivable sin, a violation of divine order, a stain that could not be cleansed. In a city where the church preached purity, no accusation carried more venom. And for the valorous enemies, it was the perfect blade. Rome tolerated bribery, even murder. But this was different, a sin so monstrous, it was whispered only in shadows, yet so tantalizing it spread unchecked. The valorous were already despised for their foreign gold, their naked ambition, their flaunting of mistresses. But incest transformed them from sinners into abominations. The irony was bitter. Their real crimes, bribery, betrayal, bloodshed, were mundane beside the myth. Matteo had bought the papacy with chests of Spanish coin. Lorenzo had silenced rivals with a casual cruelty that chilled even his allies. Isabella's betrothals were pawns in her father's chessboard, her body a currency of power. These were sins Rome understood, but they were not enough to destroy a dynasty. The whisper of incest could. The pamphlets grew bolder. One slipped under a Venetian envoy's door, depicted Isabella as a siren entwined with father and brother, her raven locks a cascade of sin. Another read aloud in Trastevere's taverns, spun tales of a papal key unlocking more than heaven's gates. The Montefiorists needed no evidence, only doubt watered by Rome's appetite for scandal. Even the church's sermons fed the fire homilies on Sodom's sins, twisted into veiled attacks on the valorous. A Florentine preacher, his voice trembling with fervor, spoke of a house where serpents nest in sacred beds. He named no names. He did not need to. Isabella became both villain and victim, to some, a seductress who ensnared her kin, to others, a pawn corrupted by those meant to protect her. The truth mattered less than the story, and the story was too delicious to resist. Lorenzo, ever the strategist, saw the peril. They paint us as monsters, he snarled to Matteo, because they cannot match us as men. Matteo, lounging with a goblet, chuckled. Words are wind. But Lorenzo knew better. Words could topple empires. The valorous true sins were buried beneath the myth. But it was the myth that would outlive them. History, after all, remembers not what men do, but what others say they did. Isabella Valeri was never merely a daughter. She was a golden key to power's vaults, groomed from childhood to serve the Valeri dynasty. Matteo's love for her was real but laced with calculation. She was his most precious asset, bartered for alliances that bound noble houses to his will. By 13, she had been betrothed twice. Her hand promised two lords whose loyalty could be bought or whose lands could be claimed. Her first marriage, to Giovanni Montefiore of Milan, was a cold transaction, securing northern influence. But when alliances shifted, so did Isabella's fate. The marriage was annulled on murky grounds. Giovanni fled Rome, whispering of threats, while rumors swirled that Matteo had fabricated claims of impotence to free his daughter. For a better match, "You'll be a queen," Matteo murmured, brushing her cheek with deceptive tenderness. Isabella bowed, her voice steady. "As you command, Holy Father." But what did she feel behind those obedient words? Some saw her as a passive ornament, others as a cunning player masking her sharpness with sweetness. The truth lay in the shadows between. Her second marriage, to Alfonso of Naples, was another move in Matteo's grand design. Naples was a Mediterranean prize, and Isabella, its future queen, would cement Valeri dominance. But this union ended in blood. Alfonso's body was found in a rain-soaked alley, his throat cut, his killers unnamed but widely suspected. The whispers grew darker. Why would a father parade his daughter through such transient betrothals unless their bond was unnatural? Pamphleteers sneered. What groom could claim a bride already owned by her kin? Isabella's ladies heard her weep at night, but by dawn she was composed, her face a serene mask as she knelt at mass beside her father. Was it resignation, complicity, or the resolve of a woman who knew survival meant outplaying all others? Matteo laughed off the rumors. Would I share my treasure with any man, even my son? He jested, his words bold yet ambiguous. Isabella's value was never in doubt. Lorenzo Valeri moved through Rome like a shadow, swift and lethal, where Matteo ruled with gold. Lorenzo preferred steel. His cardinal's robes cloaked a warrior's heart. His reputation carved in the blood of those who crossed him, but it was his bond with Isabella that fueled the darkest gossip. The siblings were inseparable. Lorenzo escorted her to Mass, lingered at her banquets, his presence a warning to any who dared approach her. To outsiders, their closeness was unnatural. To the valorous, it was survival. Isabella seemed to thrive. In his shadow, her smile warm where his was cold. "No one knows him as I do," she confided to a lady in waiting. "He is no monster." But Rome disagreed. The rumors began when Isabella was a girl. Whispers that Lorenzo lingered too long in her chambers, his gifts to intimate for a brother. Whether his love was fraternal or forbidden, none could say, but his actions fed the fire. When Giovanni Montefiore's marriage crumbled, it was Lorenzo who delivered the annulment papers, his threats ensuring compliance. When Alfonso of Naples was found dead, Lorenzo's name surfaced like a specter. Had he killed for political gain or jealousy? Alfonso had been young, kind, beloved by Isabella in a way no suitor had been. Their marriage, a rare flicker of joy, ended in a storm-soaked alley. Lorenzo never confessed, but his silence was damning. At a banquet, when a nobleman dared question him, Lorenzo smiled, swirling his wine. "A man who cannot keep what is his deserves nothing." The nobleman fell silent. Isabella's grief was public, her tears real, yet within weeks she stood at Matteo's side, her mourning silks traded for velvet, her face unreadable. Some said she forgave Lorenzo, others whispered she had always known. Their bond deepened, Lorenzo ensuring her next marriage to Federico d'Este Ferrara served the Valeri legacy. Isabella acquiesced, but Rome never forgot. The rumors festered, fed by Lorenzo's ruthlessness and Isabella's silence. Were they partners in sin or bound by loyalty? The truth lay buried, but blood, as the valorous knew, never washed clean. The banquet hall gleamed like a gilded cage, candles dripping wax onto silver platters, their flames casting shadows across frescoed walls. Pope Innocentius IX sat at the head, his laughter booming as he raised a jeweled goblet. Rome's elite feasted, unaware they were pawns in a deadly game. Isabella, in sapphire velvet, presided with grace, her fingers brushing her wine glass, her smile never reaching her eyes. Lorenzo lounged beside her, his gaze sharp. The air was heavy with roasted pheasant and spiced wine, and something sharper treachery. Cardinal Savelli was the first to falter, his face paling as he clutched his chest, unwell. He gasped, but the music drowned his words. Servants moved swiftly, dragging him away as others began to sway. A lord retching, a bishop gasping. The poison was subtle, a Valeri signature, leaving no trace but death. Isabella watched, serene. Lorenzo leaned close. "They should not have defied us," he murmured. She sipped her wine. "No, they should not." By dawn, 5 were dead. The official story blamed tainted figs. But Rome knew better. The valorous had purged their enemies in plain sight, feasting as their guests choked. These poisoned banquets became legend, proof of a family that killed with hospitality. What daughters sat so calmly as men died? The valorous, Rome learned, played by their own rules. Isabella's first wedding, at 13, was a spectacle of silk and gold. Giovanni Montefiore, Lord of Milan, smiled as he took her hand, blind to the transaction binding him. The feast was lavish, tables groaning under roasted swans. Matteo and Lorenzo watched, their faces unreadable, when the bedding ceremony loomed. Matteo halted the crowd. "My daughter is a child," he declared. "Let them retire alone." The breach of custom stunned the guests. Giovanni's face darkened, but he obeyed. Behind closed doors, what passed or did not became Rome's obsession. Giovanni claimed the marriage was consummated. Isabella, in annulment proceedings, swore it was not. Matteo declared it void, citing Giovanni's impotence, a humiliation sealed by Lorenzo's threats. Giovanni fled, raging. "They forced me," he wrote. "The Pope's son held a blade to my throat." The whispers soared. Had Matteo or Lorenzo kept Isabella untouched for darker reasons? The convent of Sant'Agata offered solace from Rome's clamor. Isabella arrived veiled, her silk traded for wool. The abbess welcomed her warily. This was the Pope's daughter, saint or sinner. Whispers followed. Was Isabella with child, a secret hidden by her retreat? Nuns watched her waist, murmuring of Giovanni's brief marriage or darker sins. Isabella knelt in the chapel, her rosary trembling in her hands. Lorenzo visited once, his boots scattering gravel. Their whispered talk by the herb garden was urgent, his departure stormy. A physician came, his examination private. The nuns heard nothing, but Rome spun tales of a hidden birth or purged sin. Matteo laughed off the gossip. My daughter seeks God's grace, but her absence fueled speculation. When she returned, paler but resolute, the rumors had not broken her. Survival, she learned, was about control. Alfonso of Naples died on a rain-soaked night, his body broken in an alley, blades glinting in the storm's flash. Isabella wept beside his corpse, her tears mingling with rain. Who did this? She whispered. No one answered, but Lorenzo's arrival at dawn, his face unreadable, spoke volumes. You mourned loudly, he said. The Aragonese will wield your grief. Her hands trembled. Did you do it? His silence was a blade. Alfonso had been no threat, only a light in Isabella's shadowed world. Lorenzo's cold words cut deeper. I spared you a harder lesson. Rome exploded with rumors. Why would a brother kill his sister's love unless he claimed her himself? Isabella withdrew, her grief private, her rage hidden, at a mass for Alfonso's soul. She faced Lorenzo. You took him from me. His gaze held firm. I protected you. Her laugh was brittle. You proved them right. Matteo's mistresses were no secret. Julia Farnese, golden-haired, was painted as the Virgin in Vatican frescoes, a blasphemy that shocked even jaded cardinals. Vanazza, mother of his children, lingered in Rome's shadows, her influence undimmed. Matteo flaunted them, seating them beside bishops, gifting his bastards titles. God forgives. He jested, but Rome did not. The rumors grew. If a pope defied celibacy, what stopped him from darker sins? Julia curried favor with Isabella, binding her with silks and secrets. But each public kiss Matteo bestowed on his lovers fueled the whispers about his daughter. At a ball for his newest bastard, a bishop dared protest. Matteo laughed. We are all God's children. The story spread, twisted into an orgy by Paris's gossips, with Isabella cast as complicit. Her father's brazenness made every rumor plausible. The summer of 1503 was stifling. Matteo, once untouchable, grew frail, his laughter a rasp. At a villa dinner with Cardinal Cornetto, he faltered, his face ashen. By midnight, he writhed, sweat-soaked, as physicians whispered of poison, perhaps Canarella, the valorous own brew. Lorenzo stormed in, demanding answers. Isabella prayed, her hands trembling. Who was with him? Lorenzo snarled. Cornetto, she whispered, but doubt lingered. On the third day, Matteo's breath stilled, cursing shadows only he saw. Rome roared grief, relief, disbelief. The valorous reign seemed over, but the question burned, murder or divine wrath with Matteo gone. Rome turned on the valorous. Lorenzo fled, a merchant's cloak hiding his cardinal's pride, only to be captured in Naples, dying in a Spanish skirmish by 1507. Isabella, now Duchess of Ferrara, learned of his death in her sunlit palace. She mourned in secret, her brother's ghost a final tether to her past. In Ferrara, she became a patron of poets, a mother, her kindness softening her reputation. But the rumors followed, pamphlets smuggled into her new life. She commissioned portraits of piety, endowed convents, yet on Matteo's death anniversary, she toasted alone. To the valorous, she whispered, may our curses die with me. The Valeri myth endures, not for its truth, but its allure. Their crimes, bribery, murder, ambition were ordinary, but their audacity was not. Matteo's open vices, Lorenzo's naked ruthlessness, Isabella's enigmatic grace made them monsters in a hypocritical age. The incest rumor, unprovable yet unforgettable, was the perfect slander, reducing their complex sins to primal horror. Isabella, victim and